All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Brothers Blue. That is Kyle.
That's Cody. And we are the Brothers Blue. Today we're going to talk about the parties switching in America, Republican and Democrat. The three main components that we're going to focus on are federal power, social policy, and economic policy, because when the parties switch, those tend to be the three main foci of why the parties do, in fact, switch. So, we're going to be talking about a video from the YouTube content creator known as Knowing Better, and he compares it to a philosophical thought concept known as the ship of Theseus, something like that. And essentially, the thought process goes that you start out with a ship and then start replacing it with plank by plank. And eventually, once you've replaced so many different pieces of this ship, when did it cease to be the original ship? However, he compares it to two different ships exchanging planks. So, yeah, it's a pretty good metaphor in which he takes a philosophical thought exercise and applies it to modern politics. Yeah, you can talk about it, bro.
So, I guess one of the things that I was thinking of is you said social, what was one of the focuses?
Social policy.
Social policy, and kind of also like social, like identifying, kind of like the way the parties identified on the like social spectrum, or taking like action on being socially active and social activism and stuff like that. So what I was thinking is that it says in the video that there was clearly one of those social shifts that happened during the New Deal. And then I think it's pretty obvious also that one of those social shifts happened during the 60s, during the civil rights movement. I guess my question would be, was there one of those with the very first 20th century kind of party split that you were talking about? I think when Teddy split from the Republicans.
Well, and to be totally honest, I would actually push back a little bit on the New Deal thing, because we are basically talking about economic policy shifting parties, especially like that is exactly what happened. It was Teddy who first was like, the Republicans need to embrace a more regulated system and more progressive policies that look out for laborers, not labor providers. And this was basically thrust on FDR, where he had to implement some labor policies, and that's what he did. So basically, the party that had been for unions and labor, the Republicans, was now the focus of Democrats. Like, every Democrat had to become progressive, and that's what you notice in the progressive era is William Jennings Bryan, which is mentioned in one of those articles.
Yep.
Is he basically was looking at he was a Democrat and was looking at the Democratic Party at the turn of the century and was like, look, we cannot be Jacksonian Democrats anymore. That is the party that brought us into the Civil War. That's the party that we're trying to revive and make happen again, when we need to create an entirely new Democratic Party.
Right.
I think it's actually unfortunate that William Jennings Bryan never became our president.
Right. A socially progressive platform is pretty much what he was trying to push through
economically.
Both. Don't you think both? Isn't that what it said in the?
Wasn't a big part of their thing is what I'm getting at, is the social progressivism really
Oh
comes
yeah,
along later. Like, dude, what Woodrow Wilson, like he even like was not, he was like kind of a Southern Democrat, almost like a segregationist, but he is the sign of Democrats coming out of that. And you only
yeah.
see Democrats after that becoming more and more into civil rights.
Okay. So and well, and that's actually what I asked originally was there's kind of these shifts that happen, and I said earlier that the first one was in the New Deal, and then you corrected me and said that it happened at the beginning of the 20th century,
Yeah.
with people like William Jennings Bryan, and Teddy and stuff like that. That was more of an economically based one, as well as the New Deal would be your argument, and that it waited until like the civil rights movement to really be the social one.
Yeah, there are historians who refer to the New Deal as the raw deal for African Americans.
That's
That's a whole,
interesting.
yeah, that's a whole different thing. Exactly, that's what I'm trying to say. It's like it's a bit kind of a big topic,
Yeah,
but yeah, like really, like FDR wasn't very. I mean, I guess he was socially progressive, but he was more economically progressive, and that's what I'm saying here. Is like I
yeah,
want to try to stick to federal policy, social policy, and economic policy. And economic and federal gets kind of, that's where like you get a lot of overlap.
right.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about social stuff. That's what I brought up right away.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was curious about, because I think that's kind of I think that's more of what's happening right now, on the kind of within the Democratic Party. I'm hoping that like there's that I can be an optimist, even though there's very little reason for optimism,
Yeah.
um, especially when you consider certain things that have happened
Well,
in previous primaries.
when you have things like insurrections and literal economic depressions happening, economic and federal policy can be a lot easier to justify. Social policy takes a long time. Like that's
Right.
what you're really getting at, is like
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
party shifting is like a really long process, and the federal and economic part of it is kind of almost like I was talking about before, where like you'll have somebody with a D or an R next to their name, and they suddenly take a economic position that goes against their party's position. Um, to do that on a social policy is like to hang yourself out to dry. Like,
Sure. Yeah. Okay. That's fair. So what I want to do real quick is I just want to share the video, just screen for a second. Shoot. I hate when this happens. Um, this one. So the video we're talking about is this Political Ships of Theseus. And he has some segments in the video that he took from a PragerU video. And this woman has a quote that is speaking of the South, the way it is currently, and how it's changed, its values have changed, and specifically the racism that once defined it doesn't anymore. The maker of this video laughed out loud at that line. I laughed out loud at that line, as did my partner in crime here. And it's just really funny to me because, like, I've actually been through the South a little bit, and I promise you, it's still racist. It is. But I can't just hang the South out to dry like that, because I'm in Pittsburgh now, and this is maybe
well,
one of the
like
most.
culturally, the South is a great place, and like, dude, there's a large section of African Americans who love their Southern heritage. So yeah,
Yeah.
we can't just hang the South out to dry, but to act like it's not racist is just kind of.
No, yeah, it's silly, and that's the thing. But also, like, there are parts of the Midwest that have like some serious racial stuff going on. And then also here in Pittsburgh's crazy, man. I've never been in a city that is this segregated, and it's leftover from redlining and just,
It's kind of interesting that the place we're from, the Northwest, actually is sort of a neo-Nazi hotbed.
I did not know that.
Yeah, look into it.
That's scary and weird. I
It's
don't like
weird. Yeah.
that.
And scary. Yeah. I mean, kind of.
So another note that I wrote down, obviously, was that we should both look into a little bit more people who have switched parties over time and kind of like how they influenced party switches over time, like Strom Thurmond, and how I guess effectual his party switching was at the
Yeah.
time.
Something that was really interesting is that, like, when Strom Thurmond did his whole Dixiecrats party like switch, like basically broke up the Democratic Party.
Mm.
The Lady in the PragerU video talks about Eisenhower winning some states in the South, and it's like the bordering states of the South. Like, it's so funny. Like, she's so selective, and it's like, oh, the South is really like 12 states, and you only named 5.
Yep. Yep, that's fun. It's always fun to teach political science and history with the selectivism like that.
Yep.
So finally on the video, my last note was he's got like a 10-second clip of Trump announcing in a very macho way how militaristic he is. And that's just a straight up lie because we've had 46 U.S. presidents, 32 of which have previous military experience. 9 were generals in the U.S. Army. And guess what? None of those people are Donald Trump. If you actually look at it, it's actually like everyone. Like when it's 30 out of 40, that's more people that were in the military than not. So,
Dude, I'm pretty sure like I'm gonna have a tough time naming them, but seven U.S. presidents served in World War II.
whoa,
You've got Eisenhower, Kennedy, Nixon, uh,
whoa,
yeah, Reagan,
yeah,
um, George H.W. There's 2 more, but yeah. So yeah,
whoa,
yeah, a
that's
lot of our
crazy.
presidents served in World War II.
That's crazy.
I know, it's cool. I think.
All right. Yeah, I do too. Actually, that's kind
I'm
of
pretty
it
sure
goes to show
after
you.
the Korean War was the last time we actually declared war on a country, which is insane because we've had, I don't know, like 7 or 8 different wars since the Korean War.
Right. What? That was in the 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So then, did you want to say anything else about the video?
No. I mean, I kind of wish I had written down what he says at the end, because he talks about um he basically says all of these things that back up his thesis of being that basically planks, certain pieces went from one side to the other. The one that comes to mind most immediately is that Richard Nixon created the EPA, and
Mhm.
sometime like last year, or like a year or 2 ago in the Trump administration, like
Yeah.
a very, very large percentage of Republicans voted to disband the EPA, while
Yep.
no Democrats did.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's been a crazy one. You're right. And that's also was Teddy Roosevelt originally a Republican?
Yes, exactly. He was.
Right. And he's like the most environmental president ever.
I mean, he was a conservationist, really. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Yep. All right. So I'm gonna share this again, and we're gonna talk about what are we gonna talk about?
Well,
Let's
this
see.
one's, if we're going to bring up the first one, it's about federal power, which is good because that's really what it, and like, dude, it's the whole big government, small government thing. And like, it says it right there in the,
Yeah. This is the quote I have. So Sometime between the 1860s and 1936, the Democratic Party of small government became the party of big government, and the Republican Party of big government became rhetorically committed to curbing federal power.
I really like that it says rhetorically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because expansion of government has occurred under every president, except, and I've said this before, Ronald Reagan. He actually did
Right.
reduce some federal programs.
Right. And I think the same can be argued for Trump. I think we talked about this.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But it's
So,
such a small level. It's like, are you really going to say that that's anti-government? The fact that they got rid of some federal powers, I guess.
so, anyways, the only other thing that I really wanted to talk about in this article, and I forget where it was. Shucks. I thought I had it. Um, was how the West had become this new voting bloc
Yeah.
after the Civil War,
Mm-hmm.
and both political parties were vying for the attention of the Western states.
Yeah.
And I'll finish that thought and say, we won, haha, we got California, Oregon, and Washington every single election.
Well, California was historically Republican, which is interesting because that literally goes back to that historical piece. Is like when the West was being settled, specifically Washington and Oregon was actually home to like anarchist sects. And California was big business all the way. Like that's all it was. Like mining, infrastructure, Hollywood, all of that.
Yep.
So it was kind of different out here, and he talks about that in the video, and he says that California did in fact switch.
So I think
And, yeah,
I
sorry.
think that happened a long time, and this is the thing is I think California has stayed. Their local politicians are more heavily Republican than you would expect in that
Yeah,
state.
totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of historical reasons.
And it's not that way in Washington or Oregon, though. Like the local representatives in those states are Democrats generally.
Well, like I said, they have anarchist roots, backgrounds, and all that.
Right. Yeah. So this one is pretty much just about, like you said.
But it's really good. Like
Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
it's very just matter of fact, like what happened. And this is literally about the first party switch. So this is what I wanted to get to. What I don't think we got to the historical basis of the Democratic and the Republican Party. And I looked it up. Oh man, I think it was in Wisconsin. Yeah, this town in Wisconsin basically was like, look, if a Democrat wins again, we're going to disband the Whig Party and start a new party, and we're going to call it the Republican Party. And this happened in Wisconsin in the Midwest, and it spread to Lincoln and all that, and he was the first Republican president. That's where you had basically what were economically liberal people. Like they wanted free open markets and things like that. Like they allowed the railroad tycoons to happen, but they were also socially liberal because they wanted to end slavery and they wanted civil rights and all that. So they were economically and socially liberal when the Republican Party was formed.
Yep.
They were going up against what was the conservative Democrats that had been created by Andrew Jackson.
Correct. Right.
And they were also conservative economically.
Yep.
He hated federal banking and all of that. Like that was his thing.
Yep.
So yeah. And what's funny is like to consider the fact that they were both conservatively liberal or conservatively economic and conservatively socially is like just ridiculous.
Yep. Yeah. Cool. So this is actually the quote I was looking for, but yeah, the Republicans were trying to win the West. Ha! Well, you lost that one. So that's
Yeah,
fine.
exactly. You might have had California for a minute.
Yep. Cool. Anything else in this one you want to talk about?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. So then we'll talk about this one. And this one is just like, it was really hard to get through, to be honest with you, because like he's so biased. Um,
That's like shocking to hear from you because of how much biased media you consume.
that's a fair point. You're exactly right. Um, let's move on. So this quote here, okay, so this is where, yeah, I just when people say things and it's like, okay, well, this is wrong and this is why, so I'm going to tell you. So it says, and so the top 10% don't really care. And so the first thing I'll actually preface this with is I agree with a lot of the rhetoric that he spouts about like income inequality, specifically the obscene amounts of wealth that is hoarded by the billionaires in this country. Um, and not only that, but like how they've done really well through the pandemic while small business has suffered. Like these are things like I agree with. Like I think it's a sad reality, but I'm not going to sit here and try to disagree with facts. But this right here. So the top 10% really don't care if the formerly fluid social mobility of America conditioned on fluctuating per a free market hardens into a caste system. So this right here that is just wrong. So conditioned on fluctuating per a free market. So what he should have said there instead is the formerly fluid social mobility of America, which relied on the highest taxation ever in America, hardens into a caste system. So that's just the simple fact of the matter. Because when we had a fluid social mobility, we had high tax rates, or I guess more so even just appropriate tax rates for big business and the upper classes. So yeah.
Yeah, all I can say is, I mean, like that's just factually wrong. Like thinking that, like you said, thinking that a free market results in fluid social mobility is just the biggest like pro-capitalist trope that makes no sense whatsoever. Um, yeah,
Yeah. It's like the whole
like I don't really need to because you just did.
yeah. It's like the whole uh raising wages will make prices go up. It's like, okay, that's never happened before ever in the history of anything ever. And prices continue to go up.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Like that's the whole thing. It's like prices are going up. That has not ever stopped. Like that's the thing that has never happened. Is
right.
prices, inflation. Like that's never stopped
Yep,
ever.
exactly. Inflation has never stopped. Exactly. Okay. So, anyways, there was one other thing on this article that I wanted to talk about, and then maybe you have some stuff. But right here, so he talks about so Trump won 83% of nation's counties, but those counties only accounted for 30% of the national GDP. Biden, on the other hand, won only 17% of the counties, but those accounted for 71% of the GDP. Okay, so basically what he's saying is that rich people voted for Biden. So that's a fact. I don't really want to argue with it. It's not something I really have feelings about either, because like if I was a rich person, I probably wouldn't vote for Donald Trump, because it says later in here's a GOP analyst said that the reason some Republicans are voting for Biden is because he is viewed as less like volatile for the market overall. So that's whatever. But oh yeah, this is one I almost skipped it. This is the main one I wanted to highlight. Is this census data quote from Wall Street Journal? So the 100 countries with the largest share of college degrees in the country voted for Biden, 84%. Wow. So like, and I know a lot of people can get a college degree and not be the smartest ever, but like this is really just saying that smart people vote for Biden overwhelmingly. And I don't care what you want to say about post-secondary education in America. You do have to have more than limited intelligence to get a bachelor's degree, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's making me just think of certain people who denigrate the specifically post-secondary education in America. Um, so yeah, that's really all I'm thinking about is like, yeah, there are people who will be like, oh, you don't need to be a genius to get a degree, and it's like, you're right.
Right, but you can't be a drooling ape either.
Yeah, what's the point? Like, what is the point that you're making? I don't get
Right.
it. Like,
Yeah, I don't get it. Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah. So the one thing that this one also talks about, or actually, I would say the main point of this article specifically, is that the current or the most recent party shift that happened was the Democrats of like probably the 80s and 90s and maybe even early 2000s being the party of the working class, and Republicans conversely being the party of big business and Wall Street,
yeah,
and how that is what's flipped. And that's what these statistics show. And I mean, I don't disagree entirely. I mean, I'm a working class Democrat. You are as well. I know tons of working class. I don't know any rich people that are
that's fine.
Democrats. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, the rich people I know are Republicans.
This
So,
doesn't negate the fact that I bet that stock ownership is one of the most bipartisan things.
what do you mean?
Stock
Oh, oh
ownership.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. For like Democrats and Republicans and higher, yeah, for people who have high net worths, yeah, on both sides of the aisle, it's probably all in stocks. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's what I was like. People want to talk about corruption and the Democratic being the party of like corporatism and corrupt business dealings, and it's like, yeah,
oh,
that's literally also that's one of the most bipartisan things. It's
so
like that happens on both sides.
you
Like,
know what I'm gonna say then to actually think? I think what it is really is for a while now, being the party of the working class is just a facade. Neither party is the party of the
yeah,
working class, and neither has been for a while now.
yeah,
Yeah, I feel good with that. Um, the one thing that I was hoping for, and we have this other article to do part two because it's longer and we need to both read it. I want to find something else. Oh, wait, this might actually be um, covered in this article. If it's not, I want to find something else that is. But what I want to talk about is what I think is currently happening in the Republican Party is a serious rift. because of the Trump base and the Trump supporters and people who still to this day think that, widespread election fraud is not only the reason for Joe Biden's election, but something that needs to be fought against legislatively, at all levels, local, state, and national.
Yeah, I'm just gonna give a quick spoiler, and I hope this doesn't upset you too much, but it's a spoiler from that article, and it says there was a civil war in the Republican Party. Trump won.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. I think he
Yeah,
won.
I read that too. Yes, it's 100%. I agree.
Okay. Well, you know what? Let's do this. Unless you have a lot more or do you have anything to say on this?
We can do this. Can be a short one. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, no, that's what I was gonna say. But if you have anything because again, he just talks about working class, and so like he says, working class is not an empty moniker, and I guess I would argue that it kind of is.
Oh, I agree entirely with you because yes, working class, like that's yeah, that's a funny term to me.
But what I'll say also is, so most of the people I know are working class, and the people I know are very divided, between both conservative and liberal. I feel like I know a lot of people on both sides of the spectrum.
I'm kind of jealous because I mostly just hang out with my kids. No, and no, I actually do teach at a school where there's actually a large number of conservatives because it's North Scottsdale, and
yeah, God, that's
Scottsdale
weird.
in Arizona is kind of a conservative place. So I don't actually, despite working in a liberal field of work, I don't feel like I get a whole lot of
Exposure.
discourse with liberals. Like most of the time, I am actually talking with people who are conservatives or people who consider themselves libertarians.
Yeah. So what I'll say is, like I live in an area where like if I go out to the store or go to bars and like I wear this t-shirt, like I'll get some looks, or people will be, maybe looking kind of cross a little bit. Um, but it's totally different at work for me. And I think that's because I work for a charter school that has a specific mission statement that is geared towards social justice, culturally relevant teaching, social emotional learning, all of those types of things. Um, so when I'm at work, I'll just be honest with you, it's kind of a liberal echo chamber.
Yeah.
But that's fine for me because like I know what it is and I engage those people the way I want to engage with them.
Yeah.
But like I said, I had to take my car to my mechanic the other day, and like I'm pretty sure they're pretty hard conservatives. I'm not sure. But they give off the vibes, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Dude, I live in a very and that's the thing.
I mean, like none of them were wearing masks, and like I wear a mask, and like that's the thing is like it's kind of open air, I guess, because it's a mechanic shop. You know what I mean? Like it's their office is like open air. Does that make sense or no?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So, but anyways, I was wearing a mask the whole time, and no one was wearing a mask, and I was like, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
I would like to let everyone know that all four of the people who might watch this that I got vaccinated today. So go get vaccinated if you can. Help stop the spread.
I'm already vaccinated, so yeah, get that vaccine. Stop the spread.
Yep.
We're gonna end it with Cody's finishing line. You remember what it is?
Yeah, you like how I lobbed that one up for you on the vaccine though?
Yeah. No, that's great. But your closing line.
Yeah, no, I remember. All right, guys, everybody, just remember, knowledge is power.
Okay.